Welcome. Rachel Mann here, and thank you for joining me. Today I'm going to talk about the Mesa tradition as it is being adapted from the Q'ero medicine people of the Andes in Peru, as well as from other regions of what used to be a part of the Inca nation, the nation they themselves called Taiwan-Tinsuyu, into the Western world. I have been a Mesa carrier for now going on about 17 years, and it has been quite a journey. And it has come to my attention over time that there are a lot of people out there who are or have studied with the many teachers that are carrying forward or offering this sacred practice and the mystical cosmology, the wisdom of this from this lineage. So this is really going to be the first video of what I am intending to become a series to speak to those of us who are non-natives, who are Mesa carriers, or who have otherwise simply taken courses with a variety of different teachers, including Alberto Viodo, my teacher, Puma Freddy Singona Quispe, and other teachers around the US and Europe who are the students of these teachers. And why am I doing this? Because firstly, I know that when I was first introduced to the Mesa practice by Alberto Viodo in the Four Winds Society, that firstly, it powerfully transformed my life. And I am so deeply grateful to Alberto and to his teachers in the lineages of Peru that he studied in, because the way the Mesa practice really is a powerful healing force for anyone who carries a Mesa out of Alberto's practice, is I cannot speak any more highly of it. And yet at the same time, given that I am a white woman of Western European origins, ancestry, and I am also an anthropologist and a folklorist, a social scientist by training, I also had a sense when I finished that training that there was so much more to the Mesa and to this mystical cosmology than Alberto himself had transmitted. And I actually then went on a journey to try to find more information. And eventually over time it led me to meeting actual teachers among the Q'ero and to expanding and deepening my understanding of the lineages of light that the Q'ero have carried forward from the ancient Inca and those before them. The first Mesa that I built was based upon Alberto Viodo's medicine wheel system, which in some part may be somewhat loosely based upon the understanding of working with the directions that is part of the Q'ero cosmovision, but which is he also probably adapted in part from his exposure to Native North American traditions that work with the medicine wheel. And the process thereby was to take us on a journey to transmute and heal our wounds and to thus emerge more integrated and then eventually come forth, be reborn into a transcendent presence, aware of and anchored in unity consciousness. That would be at least my description of it. I know from many, many decades of leading ceremonies that are intended to expand our consciousness and help us become, as the great Lakota Sioux spiritual elder Fool's Crow said, become a hollow bone, that when a medicine person is initiated into their power and into the training of the lineages, that they go through a powerful transformation. And it is an initiation that is like being cooked. And so the Mesa of Alberto Villoldo was very much about taking us on that kind of journey within. Now, I ended up with a mesa that had 13 stones in it, 3 stones in each direction, and a 13th stone, which was basically the stone gifted to us by Alberto and the other teachers, the assistant teachers in his school. So I walked away with this mesa and I immediately began to do energy healing work using the methods of healing the light body, the illuminations, wound extractions, liquid and entity extractions, soul retrieval, and other tools that came through that were given to us. And so I began to be a healer, an energy healer. And in the process, because I was connected through initiation to these lineages of the Amazon and Andes, I would often experience teachers not in the body coming into the healings and instructing me what to do. So there is no doubt that the Mesa of Alberto Villoldo and that initiation, that transmission through him as the teacher, from his teachers and their teachers on back through time, that there is a direct link or an energetic highway that connects us into that knowledge, that wisdom, accrued over perhaps millennia. And so once you step into that lineage, then if you continue the work and the practices of opening sacred space, the practices of the fire ceremony, the practices of the sand painting, as it's called in the Four Winds, I actually call it an earth mandala, that you will remain connected and you will in fact continue to receive information, to receive downloads, channelings, to receive guidance from these lineages of light. And in particular, it seemed that these teachers not in the body were very keen to make sure I learned more about the healing technologies that come through their culture, through their spirituality, through their lineages. So this was a very rich practice. Now the Mesa itself really is an extension of who you are. And also, the Mesa is also healing you. It is protecting you. It is working with your energy. And you can actually use the Mesa ceremonially to heal yourself, to help you through moments of crises and conflict and inner and outer difficulty. And I have a number of stories that I could tell, that I will tell in this series of videos about how this happened. Now, as I said, I went forward from studying the Four Winds. I started my practice, and through practicing the healing the light body, through working with clients using the healing light body protocols, I deepened and expanded my connection to my Mesa. I deepened and expanded my understanding of the tools, the healing tools of the Mesa and of the lineages. But in the meantime, I knew that there were gaps, that there was deeper cosmological, mystical knowledge that was part of the Caro lineage. I didn't know what that was, and there are a few books that were written, that have been written by students of Caro teachers, as well as of other teachers such as Oscar Miro Casada. He himself has written a couple of books. So there have been some books, more books in the past 2 decades, in addition to Alberto Villoldo's books that have come out. And yet I also know, and I knew back then, that gaining knowledge through books is not the same as the experience, because we can have knowledge in the mind, but until we bring it down into experience and we serve that experience, it doesn't really become part of our deepest being. And that in order to then connect on a more deep level, we have to continue to seek that experience. Now, as I said, for me, when I started healing with the Mesa, many experiences happened, such as these teachers not in the body and coming and guiding me when I was doing a healing session with a client. And also other visionary experiences that came to me as I worked with the Mesa. Now, then, as I said, what happened, I eventually discovered Puma Freddy Singoma, Quispe, on the Shift Network, and so I took a class there and I began to study with him over the period of this past 4 years. And that began to deepen and expand my Mesa. And in fact, that original Mesa from my Four Winds medicine wheel initiation began to change and to shapeshift. Actually, before I even met Puma, I went to Peru and I met another Paco, a Caro Paco named Sebastian, and he also taught me some things about the Mesa, about the Apus, the mountain spirits, and so that really was the beginning of a deepening and expanding of my understanding of this Mesa tradition and of its deep and profound potentiality, its deep and profound spirit that is really unlimited and eternal. And then when I began to study with Puma, more came in. The reason why I'm sharing with you this brief history is to help you start to understand where I'm coming from as I talk about the Mesa tradition, not only as I myself use it and practice it, both in my own personal spiritual practice and in my own healing and transformation, personal and spiritual growth, but also in the 17 years that I have used these mystical cosmological technologies to support others in their healing and transformation, but also to begin to open the doors in your mind to thinking about, once you have a Mesa, where do you go next? Where do you take it in your life? This is where I took the Mesa practice. And then in the process, because I had studied with my Cherokee teacher starting in the early 90s, and I studied with her for several years, a number of years, and then also I had studied Vipassana Buddhism, particularly the practices of loving kindness. And so my Mesa began to grow and develop as I integrated the, again, mystical knowledge, the wisdom, the practices of compassion, the practices of loving kindness, and the practices of connecting with our hearts and our minds, to our soul, to our higher self, to our higher consciousness in spirit and in unity. And it all began to come together. Because one of the things when I met my first shamanic energy healer, whom I went to in 2006 at a time of great crisis in my life, and I had not been studying with my Cherokee teacher, Venerable Dhani, at that point for a number of years, and I recognized the energetic vibrational frequency as being of one taste. As Venerable Dhani spoke of meeting her Tibetan Buddhist teachers in India, and where they recognized that the Cherokee, the Salagi, and the Tibetan Buddhist were of one taste. So I borrow that expression from her because I recognized that they were of one taste. And then eventually I began to learn why, in terms of the diffusion of certain mystical teachings and spiritual knowings, spiritual teachings being passed down all the way back from Atlantis and even to the Pleiades constellation. So it is important in this time for us to connect the dots. And I have many students and clients who come to me who have studied in many lineages of light, Buddhist, New Age, metaphysical, Yoruba, African, South American, Kero, Native North American. And they come to me and they say, yes, I have all I have all this knowledge. I've studied in all these lineages, because the doorways, the portals of light, the guarded gates of many ancient spiritual, mystical teachings were tightly closed and only shared with very few, which began to change, of course, in the 70s and have accelerated into the 2000s and now into the 21st century. So I think that there are many of us who have for many years, and sometimes even just a few years, who have done this study, and then they say, now what? Now what? And they say, I know there's something deeper and there's something more. And there is this longing in their hearts in order to search for that, to find it, and to integrate into an authentic practice, authentic to themselves. And this is the process that I went through from my study of Buddhism, and really even going back to when my parents were taking me as a child to the Episcopal Church, back to Christianity, and then moving forward all the way into the Mesa tradition. The Mesa tradition is the foundation of my spiritual practice. It is the root, it is the grounding of my spiritual practice. And it is one branch of a single seed out of which many of these mystical cosmologies, these mystical technologies have arisen on the planet. So I welcome you here, and I welcome you to post comments and questions to me beneath this video. And I invite you to stay tuned in for more videos on the topic of the Mesa and how we integrate our spiritual journey into something that is one for us, and that also we are then offering back in sacred reciprocity in service to others, to our planet, particularly in these cosmically chaotic times. So thank you for joining me. Thank you for listening to a little bit of my story. And I look forward to being connected to you again. So let's go, let's do it. In these times, there's no time to lose.